My name is Ashwin Chacko, and this is the business of illustration. Roll it! Today I want to share with you how I became an illustrator. This is going to be a part of an ongoing series I'm going to do on the business of illustration, where I dispel myths and share insights and lessons I've learned along the way. So to kickstart it all, I thought I would share my own journey and hopefully encourage you and inspire you in your own. So as far back as I can remember, I've always drawn. My mother retells the story of me at the age of 5 or 6, asking her,
"Can I draw for a living?"
At the time it seemed like an impossibility, but now, 28 years, 3 kids, and 2 countries later, I can finally say, woohoo! I draw for a living. This was not an easy path. In fact, it took me 10 years to become a full-time illustrator. My career can be broken down into these 3 chapters. Chapter 1 is building a foundation. I started my career in 2009. While I was working in college, I was freelancing as a designer and doing a little bit of illustration work. At the time, I didn't know it was called illustration. I was just doing drawings for people. In these early days, I did just about anything that came my way. And yes, this is where things get controversial. I did a lot of free work for people, family, friends, etc. And sure, a lot of online gurus might say, oh, that's wrong, don't do that. But I think earlier on in your career, it's okay because it taught me how to do things. It allowed me to push myself, to experiment, to actually gain the knowledge necessary to complete a full job. In 2012, I graduated, having studied animation and multimedia. At the end of the course, I decided animation just wasn't for me. And so I jumped on the next best thing, the closest thing that would allow me to still be creative and do a little bit of drawing, which was graphic design. And I got a job at an ad agency. And boy, was this a trial by fire. The next few years were really the foundation of my career because I learned more in the first 6 months of working at that ad agency than I did the 3 years that I studied my course in college. They taught me the foundations of design, of layout, and the biggest learning I took away from working at these agencies in India was you can't take your work personally. I learned to be better at taking constructive criticism and learned that the most important thing in design and illustration is ensuring that you're communicating the key message of the client well. Fast forward to 2015, a buddy of mine and I decided that we've had enough of these agencies and we wanted to start our own design firm. And so we set up Custom Clay. But less than a year later, in 2016, after the birth of my first son, my wife wanted to come back to Ireland, and so we made the move. And so for the following year, I did continue to work on Custom Clay while I waited for my visa to come through here in Ireland. And then in 2017, I got my first job in Ireland as an art director. Now, this was when I finally realized that illustration could be a career, because as an art director, I was working with illustrators, hiring photographers, illustrators to work on these ad campaigns. Now, this job didn't last very long. I wasn't quite right for it. I was still understanding the cultural nuances of Ireland, and so they didn't keep me on. And so I was forced to look for a job, and I tried and I couldn't really find a job in the design industry. I got a couple of small freelance gigs. I had one part-time job for half a day once a week. I was starting to get desperate. I was a dad of 2 kids, and I felt like I needed to be doing more. I needed to be working even harder. And so as the year came to an end, I decided to get a job at JD Sports. And this was really a desperate move, but I think it was important for me to have this encounter. This was when I really hit rock bottom. So I was working at JD Sports. At the end of the first week, I got my paycheck. And at this time, like I said, I was working at that agency for half a day, once a week. And I still made more at the agencies, 3 times as much at the agencies than I did a whole week working at JD Sports. And this made me realize that I needed to work smarter, not harder. So as I went into 2018, I decided I would stop looking for or taking up random jobs, and I would just focus on building a career as a freelance graphic designer, that I would stop looking for other jobs as well. And so then I went about updating my portfolio, making sure it was looking really good, and investing time into that. I started posting on Instagram daily, and then I started reaching out to people on LinkedIn to say, hey, I'm new in this industry. I would love to meet up, get to know you. I'll buy you a coffee. Please let me learn about Ireland. Let me learn about the industry. I just want to connect with more people. And this process slowly allowed me to grow a network, and I soon started getting freelance work over the course of 2018. Towards the end of 2018, I noticed that there was quite a strong hand lettering movement happening here in Ireland, and I felt like I would love to get on that train because I thought I could do that too. But I didn't have any work in my portfolio, so I devised a personal project on Instagram where I would post a typographic piece every day for the next 30 days. At the end of the 30 days, I realized there was a connection between each of the pieces I was doing. They were sort of discussing my freelance journey, and so I put all that work together into a book called Keep At It, which I launched in 2019 on my 10th year anniversary as a freelancer. This book then allowed me to approach art directors and show them the work and all the different typographical pieces, and then I started getting hired to do typography, hand lettering stuff over the course of that year. And towards the mid of 2019, I said, okay, things are really starting to come together. Now I can finally start shifting my jobs from mainly design, or 80% design, 20% illustration, to fully illustration as I was starting to gain traction with my network, as well as growing my audience on Instagram. My goal was by the end of 2019 to go fully freelance, which I did. But little did I know that catastrophe loomed around the corner. As we all know and experienced in 2020, the world paused. But this was a crucial moment for me that shifted the whole trajectory of my career, because I finally realized that I was a bit like a blind hustler jumping from one job to the next without a clear path or purpose or career trajectory. And so this pause moment allowed me to begin to ask myself some really hard questions, like, what do I want out of life? Why do I do what I do? And what sort of impact do I want to make? What's the legacy that I'm going to leave for my kids? And this time of self-reflection, not self-pity, really helped me to hone into what is my purpose and what sort of impact that I wanted to make, and which areas that I wanted to make that impact in. Knowing my purpose really allowed then for me to hone into my illustrative style, because I believe your style is a bridge between who you are and what you want to say. and having my style and honing into the key areas within the industry I wanted to focus in on, which were children's books and commercial illustration and motivational speaking. This then allowed me to create a plan of strategic actions that I could take over the course of that year to begin to move towards those aims. Fast forward to today, my career skyrocketed from 2020. The process of being strategic about the directions and the actions that I took allowed me to grow exponentially on Instagram as well as commercially. Today I have 4 published books under my belt with traditional publishers. I worked with some amazing clients over the last few years, and I've been invited to speak at several stages, including the Birmingham Design Festival and most recently Creative Mornings Dublin. All this to say, I hope that my journey encourages you and you realize that it's not an overnight thing. It took me 10 years, but maybe it'll take you less if you start to be strategic. Over the next few videos, I hope to start dispelling some of those myths around the industry and really dive into what it takes to build a career as an illustrator. So if you enjoyed this content, if you want to be informed or stay in touch with the content I am going to be creating, please do consider subscribing and do hit that notification bell so you know when the next video drops. As always, be true, be you, stay fruitful.